Welcome to Drive the Daf. Clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
After Shabbos Daf Kuf Zayin, it takes us to the end of the 13th parak. Parak Oirig, and begins the 14th Shemona Shratzim. So from the beginning of the Daf until the end of the parak is discussing the laws of trapping. We had just seen a Mishnah. We're now going to have a case similar to the Mishnah, and then we'll have a discussion as to whether it makes sense to say that our case is mutter when the Mishnah said that it's not an issa deraisa. Did it mean that it's permitted, or did it mean that it's only an issa derabanan? So first of all, the Mishnah had said that if somebody stands and fills up a doorway and causes an animal inside the house to be trapped, then somebody else comes and stands near him, then the first person leaves, but the doorway is still filled by the second person, that it said that the second person is putter. It means that there is no issa deraisa there. And the question is going to be, is there an issa derabanan there? But the Mishnah continues and it says, because the reason why he's putter is because he didn't do anything. All he did was keep the animal that's already caught in its caught state. That's not what the issur of trapping is. The issur of trapping is actually going out and catching the animal. So the Gemara brings a similar case. The Gemara says if somebody happens to be minding his own business on Shabbos and a bird flies under his cloak and gets itself caught there, so you don't have to get up. You don't have to let it escape. You don't have to open a window. You don't have to chase it out. It caught itself. You can just sit there until Shabbos is over. Once Shabbos is over, then you can keep it for yourself. So the Gemara asks on this. The Gemara says this is very similar to our case of the Mishnah, where all you were doing is keeping it. You're not catching it. And says Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, there's two versions over here. Either he's asking from the Mishnah, or he's trying to prove the point from the Mishnah. If he's asking from the Mishnah, he's understanding the Mishnah says that it says putter. That means that it's not an issur deraisa, but it is an issur derabanan. So how could we paskin in this case that it's permitted? According to the second version, he's trying to prove it from our Mishnah. Now, the Gemara says, well, look at the rest of the Mishnah. The Mishnah said that he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything wrong. He's just keeping it in a place where it's caught before. So if we were asking from the Mishnah, so now we're answering. We're saying, no. This is not the type of putter which is still usher, because you see the Mishnah itself continues and says they didn't do anything wrong. Now, according to the version that he was trying to bring a proof, this is a proof. So the Gemara says, good, okay, I hear it. And actually, Shmuel says that there are three exceptions to the rule that the word putter usually means that it's an issur derabanan. One of the three exceptions, this is one of them. And again, the way we know that this putter is actually permitted and not an issur derabanan is because the Mishnah continues and it says he didn't do anything, he's just guarding an animal that's already trapped. The second exception is the case of bursting a blister on Shabbos to get the pus out. So if he's doing it not to create a permanent opening, which he wants to keep open, then he's just trying to get the pus out because it's bothering him. That's not an issur. You're allowed to do something like that because it's bothering you. If he wants to create an opening, that would be binyan, that would be a different issue. How do we know that that's permitted? Because we have halacha where it says you're allowed to take a needle for that purpose. Even though a needle is muktzah, this would be a permitted use for a needle. So you see that this is a permitted activity, it's not an issur derabanan. And the third example is if you're trying to keep a snake away from you, you're allowed to catch the snake by covering up with a kli of some sort. As long as you're not trying to keep the snake, you just want it to stop biting you. So that's permitted. How do you know that that's mutter? Because again, we have a Mishnah that says you're allowed to move a bowl for that purpose, also for similar things like covering a flame so it shouldn't catch on the ceiling, or covering something that smells. Now, this Mishnah here doesn't say snake, it says scorpion, but the Gemara here is going to work with the assumption that snakes and scorpions are the same level of threat, not quite like the Gemara which we saw in Maseches Brachos, on Daf Nun Beis, but Achronim here ask, and they're satisfied that as far as this halacha, we can consider them the same level of threat. Okay, that's the end of Parak Oirig. Now we'll begin Parak Shemona Shratzim. This Parak begins by discussing the halachos of trapping and more on to the halachos of actually wounding an animal, causing a injury which draws blood. Now, in order for that to be a problem, it has to have skin of a certain thickness. So the Mishnah says that for a regular animal or bird, there is such an issur. For the 8 shratzim, the 8 types of rodents, which cause tumma with their carcasses, they also have a thick enough skin to have this Isser apply to them. If somebody draws blood from them, that's also an Isser. It's, again, we had seen it's either a Tolda of Shoichet or of Tzoveya, because it draws life out, or it stains the fur. However, for all other types of creepy crawlies, such as scorpions and snakes and worms and things like that, they do not have a thick enough skin for this to apply to them, and therefore the Isser doesn't apply to them. Now, what about tzad? What about trapping? So it applies to anything which is normal to trap, and you're trapping for the purpose of using and saving. So that would apply to the 8 shratzim. It would also apply to a bird and a wild animal, unless you've already caught them, the Mishnah says, and they already belong to you, then there's no Isser of trapping there. As far as other creatures, so if it's the type of thing that you are keeping because you want it to use it, that's an Isser Deraisa. Otherwise, it's not an Isser Deraisa. You're just trying to get rid of it. And this is like Reb Shimon, who says that it's Malacha She'ein Tzricha L'Gufa. The Gemara now begins, and the Gemara for the rest of the daf has 2 separate discussions. The first one is about the skin of these rodents, the 8 shratzim. The second one is about killing creatures which do not seem to have been born from a mother and a father. So, first of all, as far as the skin of the rodents, there are 2 halachic issues that depend on the status of the skin of these shratzim. First, as we have seen in Hilchos Shabbos, it has to have a significant thick skin in order to have the Isser of Chavala apply to it. If the skin is too thin, it heals right away, and that doesn't count as a Chavala. Secondly, as far as Tumah is concerned, if there's no significant skin, then the halacha of the skin becoming tamei counts the same as the flesh. We view the skin and the flesh as the same. Somebody who eats them would eat the skin and the flesh the same. And therefore, just like the flesh of a sheret is metame with a small size, that of an adasha, the size of a lentil, that would apply to the skin as well. If, however, the skin is thick and significant, then it would have a separate halacha. So again, the question is, these 8 shratzim, do they have significant skin or not? And it's a nafkamina as far as Shabbos and as far as Tumah. So we have seen in our Mishnah that these 8 shratzim do have significant skin. So the Gemara wants to apply this to the machlokes about the Tumah. We had seen a machlokes in Masechta Chulin between Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and the Chachamim. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says that all 8 shratzim do have significant skin. That, as far as Tumah, that fits perfectly with our Mishnah. The Rabbanan, however, say that there's a difference. 4 of them have significant skin, and 4 of them do not. So the Gemara says, so maybe those Chachamim don't fit into our Mishnah because our Mishnah says they all have skin. And the Gemara says, no. The Rabbanan there were talking about Inyan Tumah. Inyan Tumah, there's a difference. Why? Because the Torah says extra words. It says Eila Hatmeim, an extra hey, to teach you that this skin is included in the halacha of the meat, because there is no significant skin that has a separate status, and it only applies, it says Eila, because it only applies to the following 4. So therefore 4 of them have a special Gzeres HaKasav, that as far as Tumah is concerned, they do not have significant skin. But as far as Hilchos Shabbos, the Rabbanan will agree to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and our Mishnah that they all have significant skin. Now the Gemara is going to bring 2 brises, which seem to show that there is a machlokes, even in Hilchos Shabbos. The first one is going to be unclear and hard to read, and the Gemara will have 3 ways of reading it. One of the ways will be a kasha on this. That way will seem to indicate that the Rabbanan do argue with Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri about Hilchos Shabbos, and the other 2 will show that they do not argue. So first of all, the Brisa says the following thing. It says, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says, all 8 shratzim, if you cause them a wound on Shabbos, you're a chayiv. It's an Isser Daraisa. The Chachamim say the following words: Ein or ella, there is no skin except to those shratzim, those rodents that Chazal listed off, and that's referring to the Gemara of Tumah in Perek or Vaharotav and Chulin. So now this is a problem, because the ones that are on the list are the ones that do not have skin. How could the Chachamim say no? There's the only ones that have skin are the ones on that list. That was a list of things that their skin is not significant, and therefore they are tamei. So what's this about? So Abaye says, okay, so it should say loy monu chachamim. It should say the only things that have skin are the ones that are not on the list, but the ones that are on the list do not have significant skin, and you see the Rabbanan are clearly saying that this is not like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, and they're arguing on Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri even in Hilchos Shabbos. So you see that on those four, just like they argued in Hilchos Tumah and said that there's no skin, they're also going to argue in Hilchos Shabbos that there is no skin. So the Gemara says that was a Abaye, that's how he read it, and it's a kasha. Rava says you can't read it that way, you can't add in a word loy wherever you want, that's not how you read it. You read it as follows. We're not discussing Hilchos Shabbos at all. In Hilchos Shabbos, the Rabbanan agree to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri 100%. All 8 have skin. But Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri had implied that the 8 have skin only concerning Hilchos Shabbos. In Hilchos Tumah, the implication is the 8 do not have skin. On that, the Rabbanan say it's not true. It's not all of them. Only 4 of them don't have skin, the 4 that are on the list. The other 4 Shvatzim do have skin, as far as Hilchos Tumah is concerned. So the Gemara says right away, this can't be, because you have to reject this, because this implies that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri holds that in Hilchos Tumah, all 8 don't have skin. That's not true. We have a brayso explicitly where Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says that they do have skin. So therefore the Gemara goes to a third shot. The Gemara says, here's what you have to do. We're going to go back to the old explanation. We're not referring to implications here. We just take out the word ella, the word except. Now it reads as follows. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says all 8 shratzim do have skin, as far as Hilchos Shabbos. The Rabbanan say, okay, I agree. Hilchos Shabbos, I agree. I'm saying that the 4 on the list don't have skin concerning Hilchos Tumah. They don't have skin. That's it. I'm not arguing with you about Shabbos, and therefore there is no issue. And the Rabbanan could fit into our Mishnah very well. The second brayso presents a machlokes between an unnamed Tanakama and a Yochanan ben Nuri. The Tanakama says if somebody injures one of the 8 shratzim and it's one of the ones which Chazal said have skin, then it's Chil Shabbos. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says no, all of them are Chil Shabbos, nothing to do with whether they have skin or not. So you see that this Tanakama is clearly arguing and saying that Hilchos Shabbos depends on the halacha of having skin in Hilchos Tumah. So the Gemara says this, you're right, I agree. This Tanakama is arguing, but this is not the Chachamim, this is Rabbi Yehuda. We haven't met Rabbi Yehuda yet. Rabbi Yehuda differentiates between different members of the Shatzim families, not based on the pasuk of Eilat Meim, but based on their actual skin. He says the ones that have a thick, hard skin, like a lizard or like a weasel, those have skin that's different than the flesh in Hilchos Tumah, and also in Hilchos Shabbos it's considered to be an Isser if you wound them. But the Rabbanan, they do not differentiate in Hilchos Shabbos at all. So the Gemara says, well, if that's the case, so then how come this Mishnah is a machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and Rabbi Yehuda? It should be the Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and the Chachamim against Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara says, okay, that's what it is. You add the Chachamim in there, they're also agreeing with Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri against Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, now the Mishnah, the brayso also added in a line there, and it said that in order for it to count as a wound, it has to be a wound which will not heal completely, and that is defined as where the blood becomes heaped, even if it's under the skin. You have a broken skin, if you have a clump of blood underneath the skin, so that counts as a wound that's not going to heal. So Gemara says, how do you know that a wound is only defined as a wound if it's a wound which is not going to heal? So the Gemara says, because it's from the pasuk which says as follows: can a Kushi, can an Ethiopian, referring to somebody with black skin, can he change his skin? Or can the number change Chabar Burosav? The simple shot of the number is a leopard, and Chabar Burosav means his spots. So the Gemara says, no, it can't mean that. If it's referring to the spots, it shouldn't say his spots, it should say the colors. He can't change the colors of his coat. It's not what it means. It doesn't mean a leopard or spots at all. Chabar Burosav refers to Chaburos, it refers to wounds. And it means to tell you that just like a Kushi cannot change his skin, a Chabura is something which cannot be changed. It cannot go back. It's never going to recover to the full state that it was before. Okay, this is the end of the discussion about wounding Shvatzim. And now we get to the discussion of killing certain types of creatures. So first of all, the Gemara wants to establish the halacha about killing other types of creatures, creepy crawlies that aren't from the 8 rodents. Then the Gemara is going to say there seems to be a machlokes on the issue. Then we'll say there's no machlokes on the issue, and then we'll try to define some of the details we learned there. So, first of all, the Mishnah had said that the other creatures, the other creeping creatures besides for the 8 rodents, if you injure them, there is no Isser D'Oraisa. The implication is that if you kill them, there is an Isser D'Oraisa. Now, there seems to be a machlokes on the subject, because we have a machlokes between Rav Elazar and the Chachamim about killing a lice. Kill a lice, Rabbi Elazar says it's the same as if you kill a camel. The size of the creature doesn't matter. The same Isser applies. The Chachamim say no, there is no Isser there. So then our Mishnah must be like Rabbi Elazar. Our Mishnah seems to say that if you kill other creeping creatures, there is an Isser. So the Chachamim would not agree. So the Gemara says no, the only machlokes is about lice because lice aren't born by reproduction. The Gemara doesn't say how they are born, but they don't come from reproduction. And therefore there's a machlokes about that. The machlokes is based on the elim. The example, the malacha of killing in the Mishkan was performed when they slaughtered the elim in order to use their skins. Now the question is, elim were living creatures which were born from reproduction. Which aspect determines this halacha? Is it the fact that they're alive and therefore all living creatures, including lice, have the isser? Or is it the fact that they're born through reproduction and therefore anything which is born through reproduction has this halacha, excluding lice, which are not born through reproduction? Okay, but either way, the rest of the creatures which are born through reproduction, even though they creep, the isser of killing them would apply on Shabbos. Okay, now the Gemara says, are you so sure that lice aren't born through reproduction? I prove to you that they are. This is a pasuk that talks about their eggs. The pasuk says, Yesh v'kadosh baruch hu v'zan mi karne, well, it's a Gemara, not pasuk. It says, Yesh v'kadosh baruch hu v'zan mi karne re'imim ad beitzei kinim. Hashem is caring for the horns of the re'im, the behemoth, all until the tiny creatures, the eggs of the lice. So the Gemara says that doesn't mean the eggs of the lice, it means a creature which his name is Beit Kinim. So then the Gemara says, but there's a different brisa that speaks about Tfuye, a type of worm, and Beit Kinim. So same answer, that's also a species which is called Beit Kinim. Then the Gemara says, what about flea? A flea is born through reproduction, and we have a Mishnah where Rabbi Elazar says that you're chayav for killing it, and Rabbi Shua says you are not chayav for killing it. So that's another example of something which is under a machlokes about whether there is an isser or not, and this has nothing to do with reproduction. So the Gemara says, no, that's not talking about killing. That's talking about trapping. There it says trapping the flea. Killing, there's no isser. Everybody agrees that if you kill that, that's an isser. The only issue is trapping, and the machlokes is about whether trapping a flea is that the kind of thing you would trap. It's not the kind of thing you really trap, and therefore there's possibly no isser deraisa. You don't need to use the flea. Well, now it takes a slight detour, and it talks about malchus and tzricha gufa before it gets back to different types of killing creatures. The Gemara says there's three versions of what Rav Yehuda Amarav said is referring to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon as opposed to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon again holds that Malacha and Tzricha Gufa is not in Isser D'Oraisa. Rabbi Yehuda says it is. Malacha and Tzricha Gufa, it will be recalled, means that it's a Malacha which you did, but your intent was not the classic intent for that Malacha. So according to one version, it's referring to our Mishnah over here where it said that somebody who traps these creatures is chayiv only if he needed to have the creature itself. He's just trying to get rid of the creature. That's not Asur D'Oraisa, so that's called Malchus Tzricha Gufa, and he says, Rav Yehuda Amarav says that that's Reb Shimon. The other version of it is that he wasn't referring to this. He's referring to somebody who squeezes pus out of a blister on Shabbos. Again, the malacha there is making a hole, but he doesn't need the hole. He just needs the pus out. Doesn't care about the hole, and therefore it's saying Tzricha Gufa, and that's why it's not chayiv. And the third version that's referring to trapping a snake, where he doesn't need the snake, he's not trying to make anything out of the snake, he just doesn't want to be bit by the snake. Again, that's saying Tzricha Gufa and is not chayiv. Okay, now Shmuel says somebody who fishes a fish out of the water, once it's not that he trapped it was already trapped before, but he pulled it out of the water. So once it has an area the size of a Salah coin that's dried, the Gemara adds between his fins, then it's considered to be past the point of return. It's not going to live, and he has killed it, and therefore he's violated the malacha of killing on Shabbos. And the Gemara says it's not that it has to be actually dry to the touch, it just has to be that the liquid on it is thick like a mucus, and it stretches from his finger when he touches that spot. Okay, next the Gemara says if somebody puts his hand inside the womb of an animal, and he cuts off the fetus's life support, he, I guess, clips the umbilical cord, so that's also an Isser D'Oraisa. So the Gemara wants to know what Isser D'Oraisa is that? This is not a separate creature, what is that? So the Gemara says this is removing something from its life source. It's like toilesh, it's like harvesting. you cut something off from its life source. The Gemara says that's very similar to something that Rav Sheshes said. There's a type of sounds like a fungus called kishusa. It's described as a lichen or something which grows among the thorns. So it grows from the vapors, Rashi says, of the thorny plants drawing from the ground. That's how it gleans its life supports. It's not actually growing from anything, but that's where it has its support. That if you take it off that place, you have removed it from its life support supply. Even if you haven't pulled something that's not growing from the ground, that's still the Isser of Tleilesh. And a similar example to that is somebody who takes mushrooms off the place they grow. Rashi says, the Gemara says, Rashi explains, on the side of a pail of water, you'll often find fungus and mushrooms of all sorts, even though they don't grow from the pail, but that is their place of support, and therefore that is the same Isser. Now the Gemara asks, hold on a second, we learned that if you cut off something growing in a flower pot with no holes, it's not an Isser Deraisa because it wasn't connected to the ground, but you did cut it off the flower pot, and that was its source of life support. So why isn't that Isser Deraisa in the same way? Gemara says that's different. That's a plant which is not normally meant to grow in a flower pot without holes. Therefore, it's not growing in its normal life support. The fact that you cut off its abnormal life support is not an Isser Deraisa. These things are all in the place where they're supposed to grow. Cutting them off from their normal life support is an Isser Deraisa. That shall end Daf Kuf Zayin for
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.